Thank you for coming. Um, when I was invited to prepare a presentation in the ifa-Galerie, I thought it would be a very good idea to present various chapters or various elements from my work processes. And one of the things that I chose to do was this installation that is behind me, which I call the Call of the Sirens. It is forming a larger part of the exhibition, which is the jealous lover. Really, what I was thinking about was, when I was going to what I would say my hometown, I think I was very homesick. And I wanted to go and see the people and to see the place. And I came to a place which was very strange for me. What I started to realize was that I had a very different idea about what the place actually was. And it brought a lot of questions for me. At any rate, what you have before you is an assembly of different kinds of materials. I will talk a little bit about the things that came up when I was in Bakenburg from Amsterdam and the time in between. As a child growing up, I went to a normal school in Bakenburg. When I was about 11 or 12, I went to a Waldorf school and I was learning geography. And as a way to make a sense of our worlds, we were all required to show where we came from on the map. And I think it was a very traumatic experience for me when I realized that Bakenburg was a place that was actually not registered on a map. Not when I was looking for details, it was not there. And I think when it went on for quite some time that I was in that school and in the situation where I accepted that we were living in a different history time in South Africa. But I wanted first of all to explain to myself really who I was. I think I was about 17 or 18, and I wanted to, in a way, I wanted to write about my experience or where I came from. And it was always so complicated because every time I started, I realized that parenthetically there was something outside that I was leaving, because I could talk about myself, but there was the experience of my parents and my parents of my parents and so forth and so forth. And around about the same time, someone had been very kind to me as a parting gift, had given me this beautiful book called Ulysses of James Joyce. Now, I read this book because it was one of the few things that I had to read. I couldn't quite understand it, but what was so interesting was how this person was shape-shifting and using very many different kinds of languages, very analytical, very lyrical, very poetic, and so on. And I thought this is a very good way for me to kind of try and tell my story. I could just use different elements to form not really chapters, but really more like snippets. So coming back to making this work, I decided to kind of bring Bakenburg into existence in a kind of a way. Really thinking about the arbitrariness of how the different places were willy-nilly demarcated. So literally, everything is just a kind of a build-up of material, but it is not a random set, even though it might look like that. It's really what I like to think of as putting map upon a map, a micro idea into a larger whole, into something bigger, and then something really small again. So, you know, all these kind of balls in the end, for me, kind of symbolize a kind of what I imagine to be a universe as I have seen in National Geographics. But then you have all of these boxes which are kind of not really opening up, but that are spilling out different kind of guts, like Pandora's box. Then you have these columns, which were initially inspired by candy, which they used to bring to us from the city, but in which to visualize it, I was thinking then, you know, the closest is the columns that you find in the city of Venice, which kind of show where the boats can be docked. I don't know if you can follow me, but then I was really reflecting on how a lot of people grew up in smaller places like Bakenberg, for example, and how they all moved to different places, such as Johannesburg or Pretoria or Cape Town, because that is my frame of reference, really. Because they wanted to make a good life for themselves, or they really wanted to escape the dreariness or the quietness or the simpleness of the village life, and how somehow, upon reflection, they get very snared up by everything that they kind of encounter. So the idea usually is to go there to work and then to make some money and then to come back. But once you arrive in that place, a different kind of reality sets in. So I therefore used as a kind of a cipher or a representation of human beings. I used these hats, which for me are meant to evoke a kind of a sense of mourning. So that, you know, even in the middle of this kind of very colorful, explosive universe that is happening, that is exploding with all kinds of different things and different scales, there is some kind of sadness. So I wanted to bring that to bear in the presentation. And then I also, of course, used, you know, this very smooth kind of, not really a background, but a break in between, where when you go around, you have another set of ideas where it's a kind of a landscape which is really also presented in the drawings, but in this case it's like different kinds of mountains if you just look behind on the other side. So what you have then is two sides of a coin in a kind of a way. I like to think it's almost like night and day in a way, because you see that there is an explosion of colors on the one side, but then you have this. So if you would imagine this to be a landscape with all kinds of things, but it's covered in light, really. So it doesn't really have details. It could be taken from, ideally, it could be taken from space, or, you know, at any rate, it covers quite a large ground. That is the idea for making, you know, for presenting this side in this kind of quiet manner, whereas that one is really the columns and the boxes also stand in for different kinds of buildings that you will find in a city. And then I have, as a kind of a legend, what you have in atlases, right here on my left-hand side, and at the entrance of the exhibition, you have what is a kind of mental kind of map work, where I take in bits and pieces of places that I know, people that I have come across, things that have been in a way important for me. So you could see it as a kind of, the reference bits that you find in an atlas to show you the place. But because everything is so kind of abstract, the template, the idea is really looking at a map book and these as kind of legends. But there are no people, there are no visible stories in this exhibition, but that is what I'm trying to evoke with all of these kinds of different elements. There is no kind of one logical explanation, because it's really different ideas flowing into each other. So I mean, Palabora is the name of a town, Nelspruit is a town, Lidica is a person, Jane First is a place. So you really have a scattering of different encounters. So it's, maybe the different places they are like, I say condensed wholes, because it's really like taking lots and lots of notes and just reminding myself that there is this place to visit and there is something to expand a little bit further perhaps later on. And that's why I call this legends, or the index of what is actually within the maps. There are the collages where, there's one right in front of me with all of these chibuku, which is again, it's a kind of an alcoholic drink, but I really like the shape of this thing, because it looks like a kind of a city tower. And you find that there are motifs with masks, or with figures, or with figurines, because one of the things that I was thinking about was how strongly faith plays a role in the life of people. Then when I was starting, in the beginning I really used actual maps that were printed. And because there was a sense of frustration, because I thought that the maps were very false. So literally what I did was to take maps, and the first backings that I used was rubbish bags. And it was a kind of conceptually a way of consigning maps to a rubbish heap, because I did not feel that I could trust maps, because they were not always so accurate, or they left certain things out. So I would take the maps and I would take tape, and I would tape it onto a kind of which was usually a black plastic bag. But during this process of actually putting it on, I would also take various elements, newspaper clippings, things that were happening at the time that were a reflection of the time. And I would also attach them onto those maps. So I was really kind of putting holes into what was before you. But I was so interested in this process of actually of taping the actual document to a plastic, that I think in the end I moved away from being literal about the content that I was using, and it became a kind of an abstraction of what I had started with. So what you have here, you have 3 different versions of some kind of maps. Well, at least that's how they began. But in this case, there are no actual maps, but you see these kind of rather very light, almost like tracing papers. And I think that the way that the different things have been sewed on, again, it's really using elements that you will find in a drawing of a map, in the form of sewing threads again, and just the way that the plastic pieces being put together, sewn on. It for me, it still carries on that kind of idea of actually making a map. And in this particular case of the work furthest to us, it's kind of a face that is behind a set of kind of burglar bars in a way. That's the idea, because what you kind of can see is, it's a kind of a mask cut out with one eye here and one eye there. So, but it is not. That is, the starting point. But then it takes over. It has its own life beyond what I cannot dictate how the outcome will be, because I just work with slightly different elements all the time. And I think that just to get back to the jealous lover as an idea, it was just fascinating for me to realize that one of the things, I had a very quiet studio life in Amsterdam, and suddenly I was in Johannesburg in South Africa, and there was just this profusion of religiosity. I noticed that there were lots of charismatic churches all around that were promising salvation for a little donation. And I noticed that in the newspapers there was also a lot of other situations where there would be some kind of prophets which would encourage you to come and visit them, because for a little bit of money they will make you to win the lotto, they can bring back your lost lover, they can prevent accidents from happening to you. And I think the more I spent time with people, the more I realized that some people actually believe in this. But what was even maybe more distressing was that what was happening was that within the kind of the charismatic churches that I then started coming across, was that in order to be absolved, to be helped, so that one can move to a better place, one should rather jettison, one should rather forget about tradition, because the things that are happening in the traditional way of living are very evil and they are very bad. They invoke darkness. At the same time, one of the things that I found really fascinating was the fact that when there was a lot of criticality in life, if there was a birth or if there was a death or a wedding or what have you, some kind of traditional rituals would take place, but it would take place in the dark, because people would not want their neighbors to know that they were actually consorting with the dark forces, so to speak. And this became a very big question for me as a human being, that, where do I go within this kind of setup where everything that is good is religious, but if I want to feel whole, I have to do things in the backside of the moon, so to speak. And so when I started to put together the collages, I looked for elements that would communicate a sense of tradition in the way. So I looked on the internet, and because I don't have a lot of images of my own traditional things, but I thought that figurines, I thought that some photographs or drawings of some sort would help to communicate this. And in this way, then I took, reproductions of these masks and these figurines to echo the sense of what I wanted to bring forward. And I also wanted to tell so many stories, but because my work is visual, I can only hint at ideas of what I would like to say and leave it in that kind of elliptical manner. When you look at the drawings with these kind of colorful strata, it's almost like looking at geological strata. So it's in a way it's a representation of geological time. Whereas when you look at these flowing text pieces with lots of things, again, it's more for me a kind of an emotional drawing. But it, in the actual sense, it refers to a kind of a map. But this is a very confused one because it is talking about so many different time frames at once. I mean, you see that I even use elements from the cutouts, like they are almost like aeroplane windows where you are looking outside from high up. So I really like to mix different kinds of scales in the works because it's very interesting for me to do that. And then there is a video that is also playing within the exhibition, which is called Where Do I Begin? Because one of the things that I did was actually because I was frequently visiting Bakenberg, not on an extended basis, but I was always taking vignettes of what was happening while I was there. And in that particular video, you have a lot of people queuing for a bus, which at the time when I was growing up, it was the 8 o'clock bus to go to town. And I think it's very telling because when you look at it, you can see how people are dressed and how far they might be going, because the ones that are going to the next village are probably they just got up and put something on, but the ones that are going a little bit further probably have ironed their pants a little bit more and they have polished shoes a little bit more, and the ones that are just selling stuff, probably just have old aprons or very dirty things around. So for me it's a condensation of a portrait of that kind of place that I'm interested to foreground in the works here. So here I was talking about my work in the ifa-Galerie in Stuttgart. It's many different kinds of fragments. It's lovely that, the people that can come and see it, they are here. It will be unfortunate because this is a one-time kind of performance, because once this work is dismantled, it will not really exist. I mean, even if we do it again, it will be done. But so, ciao.